Great good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Monday, May 4th. I can't even believe it. Year of our Lord 20 and 26. My Cordaro Jeweler's watch tells me it's 9:14 on the nose. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he. Broadcasting today from the United States of America. Yep, we're the country making the world safe for everyone. It's also the place where the brave, like the veterans we will salute today, thanks to our man John Basiliga and his Great Eastern Roofing Systems. Veterans we've lost this year, but celebrate today thanks to John, like Robert Perlis, Scranton, Bob DeLiba, West Pittston, John Renitsky, West Hazelton, Neil Morrison, Milton and Larksville, Barry Prandy, Pittston, and Clinton Kittle, Harvey's Lake. The United States of America, founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible, amazing, irreplaceable, and profoundly wise founding fathers, who determined that government should not, could not, and cannot and never shall be our parent, our guide, our direction, our salvation. Not any of these things. Because the power of government always means less freedom, less liberty, and less choice for Americans. Our founding fathers knew that government power, because of human nature, should only be a necessary evil designed to protect and organize society. The United States of America, the country where, for the first time in human history, freedom was declared by law to be an unalienable right granted to each individual by God. It could not be parceled out to groups or controlled by government or government officials, because our great American Constitution ensures and codifies freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, economic freedom, and even freedom of the press, no matter how they abuse it. Now, because they were armed with these freedoms, and only because of that fact, a ragtag bunch of immigrants, many of them rejects from around the world, they and their progeny created the richest, most powerful, most culturally diverse and accepting nation ever to grace our planet Earth. America, the only place specifically invented and designed so that every American can live their life in the manner they choose, unlimited by their background, upbringing, race, color, or creed, unhindered by the government or those who would use government to control others for their own comfort, benefit, or power. This Bob Cordaro Show will always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And yes, the double entendre is intended. And so, we gavel to order today's meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that our totally immersive and movable commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity to all of you who hearken here for the balance of this singular, extraordinary morning. And they all are, aren't they? A gentle warning, this is not a safe harbor for stupidity. It will be roundly and, dare I say, harshly attacked throughout the program. We will not suffer fools gladly, and their foolishness and ignorance, willful or otherwise, will be called out with intent, purpose, and vigor, designed and sadly necessary to save our great American Republic from evil, senselessness, and weakness, which can bring this incredibly successful experiment down. So, guys, great to be with you on a Monday. We have, of course, today, John Perillo, Monday Musings. He'll be at 10 o'clock. And then for the 11 o'clock hour, we've got Charles Buffalino. And his book is Buffalino, Revelations of a Mafia Family, the Teamsters, and the Final Resting Place of Jimmy Hoffa. He may not give us all of that, but I've got a pre-published edition of the book, and we're going to talk about that book. And life in Pittston, all that. It was neat stuff. and unique to Northeast Pennsylvania, without doubt. We played, if you heard, James Comer. It is a really sad fact that whatever the Democrat Party accuses normal people of is exactly what they are doing. Here, perfect example. Bring it right to the home front. Paige Cognetti. Now, she claims she's running for Congress against our great Congressman, Rob Bresnahan. She claims she's the transparent. She's transparent. Everything's transparent. Except you can't get into City Hall. But it's transparent. I guess it's transparent that you can't get in and that they don't want you to see it or be involved as a citizen. But apparently she left off of her finance statement. She left off her second home, which is a cottage up at the Village of Four Seasons at the base of Elk Mountain. And I'm like, and by the way, the thing is, of course you're entitled to have this. Her husband works or whatever. But this is the phony patrol. Please remember. She's all upset that apparently that Rob Bresnahan has been incredibly successful in life. So she's resentful of that fact, and she's for the working people, but she hides her second residence, her cottage. I mean, you just say, you got to say, are they kidding? And by the way, my street's still not paved. There's equipment there, but this is the street. So it's incompetence, it's lying, and complete phoniness, but she wants to be your congressperson after being a horrendous mayor in the city of Scranton that we've all had to endure. Yeah, the mayor who had the crosswalks painted before they dug the street up, who patched the street before they had it dug up, who patched it again before they had it dug up, and then who dug it up so that it could be patched. This is just one street. And now we find out she's got a pleasant little summer cottage, winter cottage, whatever. She's got a pleasant little second home that she didn't tell anybody about and just didn't happen to put on her finance forms. This is the insanity. Unbelievable. Somebody texted in helpfully, Pennsylvania United States Senator John Fetterman on Fox yesterday said he's the only Democrat now standing with Israel and said he rebukes the main Senate candidate who is anti-Israel and is. This guy's a sick bastard running for Senate. And I mean, yeah, all we have is Susan Collins, but we have Susan Collins. This lunatic, I'm telling you. So he's got a Nazi tattoo. Okay. He's got a Nazi tattoo. And the Democrats are trying to pretend, well, you know, I mean, it's youthful indiscretion. Could you imagine them if a Republican ever did that? That's what I'm saying. It's so phony. It's so disgraceful on everything. We are either lucky or cursed that we have Paige Cognetti, who's the embodiment of all the phoniness, all the left-wing agenda, everything that's disgraceful about today's Democrat Party, and she's the perfect exemplar. Wow. It's that's why you need your sanctuary of sanity. Because they will tell you, no, you're the one that's wrong. I never said that. I never said close the border. I never said be tough on criminals. I never said defund the police. You can name the issue. Name the issue. Whew. All right. We'll take our break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll hear from our great sponsors. We're going to do a little history, a little music, and I'm going to remind you, you could check out the live stream. And I've got my Abe's hot dog shirt on again today. Cutie washes everything so quickly. I could probably wear the same clothes every day. I might be one of these people. I'm thinking eventually. It's because it saves so much headache that, like, wears the uniform. Remember Stephen Jobs and those people? I may start wearing basically a uniform. Anyway, Roach Supply is bringing you the live stream, and they are the premier bath and kitchen supplier in Northeast Pennsylvania. 75 years in business, led to this day by 90-some-year-old veteran Ron Roach. It's ROCHE, roachsupply.com. We'll be back. Hey, so speaking, that's Elvis. Murph tells us this date, 1956. Elvis released his hit, I Want You, I Need You, I Love You. That's what every woman wants to hear. And then, of course, before that, even though I despise Robert De Niro, he did play, I think, the best Capone. But 1932, he goes off to federal penitentiary Atlanta and later transferred to Alcatraz. Syphilis caught up with him, and he died a blithering idiot. Anyway, the Joe Nardone show with the Brooklyn Bridge, Dupree's, all that, huge success. My parents went with the Martins, otherwise known as the Corleones, and they had a great time. It was a good crowd, too, a very good crowd. And so I'm just happy to hear that, because I said I wasn't able to go because Cutie and I were invited by our friend Jason Wiggins up to his house for a derby party, which was awesome. He's opening some sort of event space up there in North Pocono area, and he wanted to test it all out on us. So we had a great time. Brother Ron was there. My son Michael was there with his wife. Yeah, it was great, Joy, Melissa. And then our friend John Basiliga showed up. He and Marissa were there, and so was Casey Donahue, another great developer we have here in Northeast Pennsylvania. Good gang, yeah. Ran into the Chomkos. Just a lot of fun. And that party, and then we went to a Terra after that. Had a great night Saturday night. Did nothing Friday, did nothing Sunday. Those are my best days. Although walked Chauncey, of course. But and you should see Chauncey. Cutie had to go to a dental appointment early, so I was left and leaving. Chauncey gets so upset when we leave him alone. He's curled up in a ball. This is a 130-pound dog. He's curled up in a little ball on the couch when I left. I had to go over to him and say goodbye. Funny. But a great weekend. And I've got to get to these oldie concerts because, these performances can't last forever. They really can't. Hey, by the way, next hour at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Tina Morocco on. She is the global sales advisor at Sotheby's International in Naples, Florida. She's your trusted guide for Florida real estate and specializing in Southwest Florida. We're going to have her on to bring some sunshine to the program, although we've got some decent sunshine today. But let's hear from our sponsors. Let's do all that. Veterans Tribute, the weather. We've got a nice little video for you. Well, it's an audio for you. And then we'll be back with the program. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our Veterans Tribute this day, this hour, as always, brought to you by our man, John Basiliga. Basiliga Hospitality, Eastern Roofing Systems, Serenity Care. All these companies, gold standards for what they do. Eastern Roofing Systems, the premier roofing company in the eastern United States. And he takes all that buying power, all that experience on monster projects, and he'll do your house here in Northeast Pennsylvania because they're headquartered in Jessup. Eastern Roofing Systems. Robert Perlis. He was from Scranton. We lost him at age 92, April 8th. His wife, Mary Ann, she passed away in 2008. The couple had been married 70 years. Born in Mount Carmel, he graduated from Mount Carmel High School and Dickinson College back in 1953. He then went on to serve all of us in the United States Air Force. After moving to Scranton, he was the bar manager for the late, great Hotel German for many years. Oh, the Manhattan Room was awesome. He was a fourth-degree Knight of Columbus, a big sports fan. Surviving our daughters, a son, 9 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. A great legacy. Robert Perlis. Robert Bob DeLiba. He was 91 when he passed April 4th. He was from West Pittston. Born in Glen Lyon, graduate of Newport Township High School. Bob excelled in both football and baseball during high school. He was so good in baseball, he was drafted straight into the major leagues after graduation. He spent several years playing in the Major League Baseball before enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, a decision he took immense pride in as he served his country. Following his honorable discharge, Bob returned to professional baseball as a pitcher, joining several major league teams, including the St. Louis Cardinals, Los Angeles Angels, Kansas City Athletics, and the Boston Red Sox, appearing in 176 major league games as a pitcher. He later attended Wilkes University on the GI Bill, earning a degree in history and education. He went on to teach at Wyoming area for many years. His passion for baseball never faded. He continued to coach at several levels, Wilkes, Kings, alongside my old pal, Ace Bronya. And then at Wyoming area, where he led a number of great teams, including helping to guide their only player in the school's history to reach the major leagues. Avid hunter and fisherman, loved spending time at his cabin in Dewshore. Loved to pick mushrooms and blueberries. Relaxing on his porch. Tragically preceded in death by his son, Michael. But he survived by his wife of 38 years, the former Mary Ann Noss, 2 sons, and other family members. Bob DeLiba. Our great veterans, this hour, brought to you, as always, by John Basiliga, today featuring his great Eastern Roofing Systems. Oh, that means the weather. AccuWeather forecast brought to you by the gang at Montage Mountain. They're swinging into spring. Always something happening up there. There really is. Today, partly sunny, breezy, and warmer. Well, AccuWeather's telling us it's going to get up to 73. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 55. Tomorrow, breezy in the morning, otherwise partly sunny and warmer, high 82, low 57. Wednesday, breezy and cooler with periods of rain, high 63, low 44. Thursday, breezy with periods of rain, high 58, low 39. Intervals of clouds and sun with a stray shower and breezy on Friday, high 60, low 45. And that is your weather brought to you by the great gang up at Montage Mountain Resort, where it's 54 degrees as we speak. Somebody texted in, Bob, you talk like the guys on Warm Radio 30 years ago, which I find to be pretty funny. Well, it could be ingrained. Everybody listened to Warm 30 years ago. Well, maybe longer than that, but 40 years ago. 50, it might be 50. Now that I think about it, it might be 50 years ago. But who didn't listen to the Harry West Show? Harry West, the Harry West Show. Harry West, and the big fella, Terry McNulty. Oh, they were awesome. Well, that's the Moody Blues. This date, 1964. They formed as a band in Erdington, Warwickshire, England. Their first hit was Go Now, Murph tells us. And that's the song. Reminds you of the oldies. Somebody else says, Bob, I listen to an oldies show every day from 9 to noon on WILK. And then they acknowledge, I know, leave the jokes to you, ALTS. ALTS, back at you. Hey, did you guys know? I just found this out. I'd love to watch golf on TV. I like to play it a little bit less. And as long as I get to go in the clubhouse after, or the bar or whatever, like up at the Marjan, I love it. But, yeah, they've got a PGA tournament, and it might be one of the majors at Aronimink in Philadelphia this weekend. And as Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that. Yeah, a huge tournament in Philadelphia this weekend. It sort of started coming back to Philly. You know, every once in a while, they would play in the area. But now this is the second year in a row that there's a big tournament there. A bunch of my friends going, they were on a text group talking about it. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't even know. So anyway, that's hey, for the practice rounds, it's too late for the rest of it, I think. You know, to go for the weekend. But for the practice round on Wednesday or even Tuesday, that might be worth the trip for you if you're a golf fan. And you get out and you get to walk around and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm by the way, proud I sound like an oldie or that I'm reminiscent of Warm Radio in its heyday. Even if it wasn't intended to be a compliment, I'm pretty happy about it. All right, let's hear from our sponsors and remind you that you can check out the live stream brought to you by Roach Supply, ROCHE, RoachSupply.com, the premier bath and kitchen supplier. And they've been doing it for 75 years, which means you can trust them, and they're good at what they do. We'll be back. Steppenwolf. This date, 1968, Murph tells us they performed on ABC's American Bandstand. They performed their hit Born to Be Wild. First album I bought, I know I've tortured you with this before. First album I ever bought was Steppenwolf Live. Everybody else in my grade school class was buying the Partridge Family, and I bought Steppenwolf Live with the big wolf on the cover. Great stuff. Oh, Navy guy pointing out, longtime Yankee broadcaster John Sterling passed away at the age of 87. Oh, that's too bad. Somebody says, Bob, that's a compliment about warm radio. You're a good person. Thank you, and always will be. Thank you very much. Well, I am more than flattered now. But John Sterling passing. Thanks for mentioning that to us, Navy guy. Was he the guy that says, well, I'm asking the Bulldog questions. He lives in his own little Bulldog world. You don't know John Sterling, do you, Bulldog? Oh, is he the guy you say, Yankees win, the Yankees win? All right, well, in his honor, we've got to play, find one where he gives a Yankees win thing. And I don't hate the Yankees anymore since I met, that whole gang, including Big Stein, when we brought them to Northeast PA. But so I can play it happily. But thanks for passing it on, Navy guy. As we head to Bloomberg Money Minute, we just want to mention Charles Buffalino will be in studio at 11:05. And we're looking forward to it. He says, are we going to be on the live stream? He goes, how should I dress? I said, I got a T-shirt on. Don't worry about it. 9:50 says Bacardo's. By the way, referencing the last song we played, Steppenwolf, Bob Beat says, I was fortunate enough to see Steppenwolf in concert at Rocky Glen in the early 80s. $8 a ticket, and they were fantastic. Never saw Steppenwolf. Wish I had. By the way, Sirius and Joe from... I'm sorry, Joe from Soyersville, who, by the way, dropped off a great book, Billy Vaughn, but it's Betrayed. Fantastic. Somebody had texted me about it last week, and I mentioned it. The shocking true story of extortion 17 as told by Navy SEAL's father. I'm looking forward to reading that. Thank you very much, Joe. But they Sirius and Joe from Soyersville tell me, no, the golf tournament's not this weekend, it's next weekend. All right, next the 14th. And I'm wondering why my law school class reunion at Penn is next weekend. Could not get a room. I waited too long and I knew it. But because it's graduations, I'm going to be down there for a graduation in the middle of the week, my niece's graduation. And I was going to stay Thursday, because it's Tuesday, Wednesday. I was going to stay Thursday, Friday. But apparently, I can't get a room Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Can't get a room. So I'm just driving down and back on Friday. But, we'll see the old law school classmates and all that kind of stuff in any event. 570-883-0098. Couple minutes before the top of the hour if you want to call or text. Somebody says, I'm a shirt-tail relative of Bob's. And that's Bob DeLiba, one of our veterans today. He said he could sting your hand with one of his pitches at 75 years old. He used to throw 100-plus miles per hour. And his whole thing was teaching young kids how to pitch. He was a great man and tough as nails. He quit his last job at 85. What a guy. And the listener says, LTS, thanks. I love that. I love when you guys know these vets and text or call. Bob DeLiba. So he was a fastballer. Think of this now. He goes to the major leagues. He gets drafted out of high school. And then he serves in he plays for a little bit, goes into the Marines. And he comes out and he can still play. Isn't that something? Unreal. So, in any event, thank you for that. I appreciate you getting back. We love these vets. Man, what they did. And none of the vets just, they served and that was it. Except, of course, those who paid the ultimate price. But they lived these great lives, left amazing legacies behind. We would just want to make sure they're not forgotten. We don't want that to happen. We can't allow it. Joe from 44 said, and I saw your note in the book, Joe. I saw your note in the book, and thank you. I appreciate it. It's a story, and maybe we'll get the authors on at some point to tell us about it. But it's a story that I'm going to read. We've betrayed a lot of our troops, believe me. Hey, let's go quick to Tom from Oliphant. Tom, how are you? We got about a minute, my man.
Oh, okay, good enough. Yeah, I heard your comment about Steppenwolf at Rocky Glen. I never saw them either, but I became familiar with their keyboard player, Goldie McJarn. I met him online.
Huh.
We conversed. I sent him my album covers. He autographed them. And he sent me some memorabilia afterwards. And very quite interesting stories he has about those days. And he was a shoe salesman up in Toronto, I believe, and the guys from the band, John Kay and Jerry Edmonton, I believe, came and got him and said, hey, we're forming a band, let's go.
Huh.
He left. He left his girlfriend and child and took off to the West Coast, right from the shoe store. True story. He told me this. And he died a few years ago, but he said until that day he died, that child, the daughter, never spoke to him. Understandable.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And you can't bring the kid on the road. But that sounds
No.
like the Blues Brothers. Like, drop everything. We're here. We're getting
Hey,
the
listen,
band together.
he told me he literally had 7 Porsches in his driveway in the heyday at one time.
Wow.
That's how profitable it was. And in my basement in my bar, I have a painting that he sent to me. It's an oil painting, and it's probably one of maybe 3 that he did. And before he sent it to me, he took a video of maybe 2 or 3 other ones in his basement, and he was breathing real heavy, and he was a smoker, Marlboro Reds. And not long after that, I didn't hear from him, and I contacted his wife, who was Sonia. They lived in Seattle, Washington, and he went to take the garbage out, and she heard the cans go clanging, and he was gone. And she said, I knew it. As soon as I heard them, I knew it, and that was it. And I just wanted to relate that story.
Oh, I'm so happy you did. Do you have Steppenwolf Live?
I probably do. I have them.
That's
all.
that double It's that double album with the wolf on the front. You got to distinctly remember that.
I'm gonna look.
You
My
look and let
favorite
me
was
know.
For Ladies Only. For Ladies Only. For all you viewers out there that have that album by Steppenwolf, For Ladies Only, look very, very closely with magnifying glass around the red border on the front of the album cover and tell me what you see.
Huh.
Take a look.
Man, they did. Yeah, they had great album covers in those days, didn't they? That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where did you buy your records at, Tom?
I think it was an alternate, was it a dime store, Woolworth store?
Oh, they had their
something?
own? Okay. Because I'd go to Ralph's Record City, and, of course, we all know Joe Nardone's Gallery of Sound. But how about that? Neat. Well, that's great. Tom, I appreciate it much, but you do have to check back with me to let me know if you got Steppenwolf Live.
I will.
All right. Great, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for taking it.
All right, man. 10:02, just about, on my Bacardo Jewelers watch. So that means we got to go to the news. Let's do that. We'll come back. We've got Monday Musings with John Perillo, where he's going to talk about that Supreme Court decision regarding the gerrymandering in Louisiana. Strangely enough, they don't allow racial gerrymandering. Isn't that interesting? We'll take a break and be back. You know it, baby. Great good morning, everyone. It is 10:10 a.m. on my Cordaro Jewelers watch. This beautiful Monday, May 4th, 2026. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and honor, with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great Eastern Roofing Systems, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost this year, but celebrate today, thanks to John. Like Bob Duliba of West Pittston, Robert Perlis of Scranton, John Renitsky, West Hazelton, Neil Morrison, Milton, and Larksville, Barry Prandy, Pittston, and Clinton Kittle, Harvey's Lake. So with history, our amazing founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that our deep and unalterable commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity in a world of insane people in leadership, media, academia. You need this sanctuary. So it's available to all who hearken here. So it is Monday. Well, what do we do on Mondays? We do Monday musings. Are you ready, Bulldog? We can't start without you. Well, here he is, our man John Perillo. John, welcome back. Great to have you on a Monday, but I'm shocked at how quickly these Mondays and these weeks fly by. It's insane.
Boy, that's like an old man comment. I just want you to point that out.
Well, I'm an old man. I mean, there's not much I can do about it. By the way, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm walking Chauncey, okay? Now, look I am 65, but I could still walk a 130-pound bull mastiff anyway.
Right.
Which most people couldn't do at any age. But I'm walking, and I go, I don't mind if somebody calls me the older guy. But if they call me, if they identify me as an old man, I don't like it.
There's that
Even
one.
though it's
Absolutely.
true. Even though it's true.
That. And mine is around what hurts this morning, right? What do I have to work around to get the chores done? Because man, my shoulder now all of a sudden is torn out. So,
well, I have it easy. Everything hurts.
There you go. It saves some time. So for your younger listeners in the audience, this is what you get to look forward to, just so you know.
As far as we know, it beats the alternative. As far as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as we know. So I'm a little perturbed at Bob for putting me on after getting Justice Thomas's quotes up, because he's wonderfully clear in his thinking. And if you ever want to know what the Constitution most clearly says, you can just read his opinions, I think. But I did want to.
And by the way, that was serendipity, because yes. I picked that Kayleigh McEnany piece on Saturday to play at 10 o'clock. So
very good.
And you give me the subject this morning, and I'm like, okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Because I think the decision regarding the Voting Rights Act is really important, especially because of all the midterm redistricting excitement. It actually matters politically. If the Democrats gain control of the House, Trump will be impeached there within a matter of months. Even if a conviction of the Senate is likely, that won't happen. But even a House impeachment means a greatly restricted Trump's agenda and a news cycle that's likely going to be dominated by cryptocurrency and subpoenas. So this is consequential. But that said, the decision was completely apolitical, and I think it was very important. And I think Gorsuch made a comment that I thought was interesting, that the one institution that our founders would likely recognize in our current government is the Supreme Court. Although I think that our founders would be surprised at how important the court has become. The court was designed to be just to say, hey, the law says this, period, end of discussion, let's move on, right? But it's become this place where, because legislatures have essentially decided that they feel that they can go against the Constitution, that the court now has greater authority and greater importance. But we had discussed this case back when it was going through oral arguments. And what made me want to review this, in addition to the serendipity that Bob was referring to, was that there was a piece in National Public Radio that got the decision almost entirely wrong. And it got me really upset. My poor wife has to listen to me yell at the radio when I listen to it. And I admit to getting frustrated by how hard it is to find accurate information, even from what used to be a left-leaning but generally pretty accurate source.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's start with the bottom line, which is that the Supreme Court decided that no matter what happened to blacks prior to the Voting Rights Act a half a century ago, today black voters are now mainstream voters in either the Democratic or Republican parties, and that they shouldn't be treated any differently than any other voter in the U.S. And it's important to understand here that there were actually state-sponsored discrimination against black voters in the U.S. in the past. And by that, I mean states were putting requirements on voters that were designed to limit black participation in voting. And it wasn't partisan. It was racial and it was deliberate, even if race and party would often align. So the idea that Congress sought to address that by using the Voting Rights Act wasn't absurd at the time. The issue for the court today was that if Congress designed a system to eliminate the problem of state-sponsored racial discrimination, and state-sponsored racial discrimination was no longer a factor, could states continue to design districts around race? The Constitution clearly does not permit the states to disenfranchise any group of legal voters, and it doesn't allow the treatment of different groups of people differently. And there's precisely one constitutional differentiation, and that's citizen. So all that said, I think it's important that none of this presumes that individual racism doesn't exist. Of course it does. Human nature being immutable and us being tribal, people will always discriminate. The question before the court was whether that required the intervention of law. So the issue that faced the court was, in the specific discrimination case, was that the Constitution itself requires government not to discriminate, while the Voting Rights Act required the government to discriminate, which left us with the situation where politicians were trying to make believe that they weren't producing legislative districts of using race as a factor, when, of course, everyone knew that they were. And in writing for the majority, Alito said, quote, "The Constitution almost never permits the federal government or a state to discriminate on the basis of race." And further, quote, "Allowing race to play any part in government decision-making represents a departure from the constitutional rule that applies in almost every other context," end quote. Now, Justice Alito is a very careful writer, and he twice uses the word almost, as in almost never allows for discrimination on the basis of race. The decision means that the majority believe that the Constitution does allow discrimination on the basis of race to remedy some specific past discrimination. But that discrimination has to be explicit, and not that this or that group is underrepresented here, but that this or that group was explicitly kept out of the process by the government.
And they have to be cautious. Alito has to be cautious that it's not interpreted to mean that any rulings related to race are overturned.
Correct. That's absolutely correct, right? And in fairness, the Voting Rights Act was designed to enforce the Constitution, and because we use the Roman model of citizenship, which we discussed in the past, all citizens get all the rights of citizens unless they forfeit them legally. So, for instance, felons and gun rights would be an example of that. If you're a citizen, you get all the rights, period, end of discussion, right? And in this decision, the court did not actually end racial gerrymandering, but rather said you can only racially gerrymander to correct past racial discrimination. That's what the plain reading of the Voting Rights Act said. So if you can show that a district was drawn to discriminate racially, then there is still remedy under the Voting Rights Act. And the press keeps bringing up the end of what they would call majority-minority districts, which translates to congressional seats that will always be black, right? That concept was never the intent of either the Constitution or the Voting Rights Act, nor does that phrase, majority-minority, exist in any legislation or in the Constitution. So when you hear that in the press, you can ignore that, right? Which means that a state cannot look at the race of a congressman representing a district and say that the outcome shows racism. You have to show that the process was racist. And the decision does not prevent states from political gerrymandering. So the effect of the ruling on majority-minority districts is probably going to be pretty minimal by itself. But if minority voting trends shift towards the Republican Party, a Democratic state legislature could still gerrymander districts to dilute Republican voters. Okay, so that's kind of the summary of that. For those of us who are watching this intrastate squabble over gerrymandering, this legal political gerrymandering can continue. So it's still possible for Virginia, for instance, to draw a majority minority district. As long as they are doing it for political reasons, not racial reasons, they can gerrymander away all the Republican House districts if they want under this ruling.
Well, by the way, where does that stand, Virginia, now? Did the Supreme Court stay it? The Virginia Supreme Court stay this after it was stayed by the district court?
Great question, right? So the issue in Virginia is not a violation of the Voting Rights Act. The issue in Virginia is that the Virginia state constitution puts the drawing of districts in the hands of a bipartisan commission, right? So the question was whether this voter referendum that changed that was legal in the state. So it's a state question. It has nothing to do with this decision by the federal government and by the Supreme Court. So those two things are completely separate, right? The NPR take that got me all riled up, or in a lather, if I'm going to use Bob's phrase, was that this was some radical right-wing decision. It was nothing of the sort. It pretty clearly just says what the Constitution clearly says. Now, both Gorsuch and Thomas wanted to end all litigation on the voting rights redistricting, but the majority didn't go quite that far because, again, according to the majority, if there's evidence of racial discrimination, the Voting Rights Act still applies, right? That still leaves us with those who are critics of this current spate of partisan as opposed to racial gerrymandering. And there are those, some of those who think that this decision might help. And for the record, this is a Louisiana case that was initiated after the 2020 census. So, no, this current battle didn't start with Texas. Right? If anybody tells you that, that's also false, which was another thing that got me
horrible
in a lather.
Reporting on the whole issue. Horrible reporting, right? Including our own station, because we got ABC and AP, and it's like, no. They said that you can't.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you can't base districts on race. Well, my gosh, isn't that what we've been shooting for all these years?
Right.
God almighty.
And ideally, this kind of leads to both Republicans and Democrats, either formally or informally, seeking an agreement to end some of the latest nonsense. But if there's no agreement, at least the answer is that both sides are now operating under the same rules.
Yep.
And that the role of the court is now much smaller, as it should be. Right? There was a second ruling, real quick, that I want to get to that didn't get any of the attention that the redistricting one did, called First Choice Women's Resource Center versus Platkin. And if you live in a blue state like I do, you see lots of this selective prosecution of women's health centers that offer alternatives to abortion. So all these centers that say, hey, here's adoption, or here's a way we can help you with your child. Those centers were getting selectively prosecuted by state prosecutors. And in this particular case, New Jersey was subpoenaing these crisis pregnancy centers even when there were no complaints against them. So the Attorney General in New Jersey was literally taking these crisis pregnancy centers to court, and what it was doing was drying up the donors to these centers. And in a unanimous decision, the decision was that these women's centers can appeal their cases directly to federal court. They don't have to go through the state anymore. Even the most liberal justices on the Supreme Court saw what was happening in New Jersey and elsewhere as selective lawfare. That essentially the states were using law to distract donors from these crisis pregnancy centers. And at some point, Bob, I want to do a piece on the history of lawfare, which actually goes all the way back to the Roman days. And why this stuff matters. But, again, bravo Zulu to the justices in both of these cases, especially to the unanimous decision against selective prosecution of pregnancy centers and what I think is a very plain and clear reading of the Constitution in the Calais case. So hopefully we'll see some positive stuff come out of that.
Well, we appreciate it. John Perillo, Monday Musings in a lather. And that's a good thing. We'll take a break.
Yes,
We'll take a break and we'll be back. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you to you and your listeners. Have a great week.
All right. We'll be back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by our man John Basiliga. We are featuring today his Great Eastern Roofing Systems. His first company, his biggest company. They are the premier roofing contractor in the eastern United States. And they bring all that expertise, all of that buying power to you in Northeast Pennsylvania, whether it's your house, your building, or your major project. Eastern Roofing Systems, they're headquartered in Jessup. John Renitsky, he was 92. He was from West Hazelton, and we lost him on April 14th. Born in Hazelton, a member of the parish of St. Pius of Petroclina at Transfiguration Church, West Hazelton. A veteran, he served all of us in the U.S. Navy as a second-class gunner's mate on the USS Bristol during the Korean War. A salt of the earth man and product of the anthracite coal region, he was a welder by trade with a passion for family, fly fishing, and Notre Dame football. Preceded in death by sisters, but survived by his wife, Marie, and his children, James, daughter Mary Doherty, David Renitsky, 7 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren, as well as nieces and nephews. John Renitsky. Neil Morrison. He died April 14th. He was born in Milton. Proudly served this country in the United States Coast Guard. Following military service, he went to work as a banker for Franklin First Federal in Wilkes-Barre. Avid sports fan, he had an artistic side and assisted in designing blueprints for his family's house. He loved collecting die-cast model cars and model trains. He loved cars and car shows as well. He played the electric guitar. Faithful member of Trinity Presbyterian Church in Dallas, he was one of the founders of the Northeastern Pennsylvania Coast Guard Veterans Association, serving as president for 10 years. He's survived by his daughter, son, cherished grandchildren, brothers, and other family members. Sadly preceded in death earlier this year in February by the love of his life, his wife of over 60 years, Mary. Neil Morrison. Our great veterans this hour, brought to you by John Basiliga and Eastern Roofing Systems. AccuWeather forecast. Today, and by the way, all of it brought to you, well, yeah, pretty much all of it, brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain Resort. Today, partly sunny, breezy, and warmer, up to 73 degrees, 61 degrees at Montage Mountain right now. Tonight, partly cloudy, down to 55. Tomorrow, breezy in the morning, otherwise partly sunny and warmer, high 82, low 57. Wednesday, breezy and cooler with periods of rain, 63 degrees, low 44. Thursday, breezy with periods of rain, high 58, low 39. Friday, intervals of clouds and sun with a stray shower. It'll be breezy, high 60, low 45. And that's your weather, brought to you by our great friends at Montage Mountain Resort, where they are swinging into spring. George Washington Carver, one of the all-time great Americans. Well, you know that song. You know what it means. It means it's time for a little sunshine in our lives. And that is Tina Morocco, Global Sales Advisor at Sotheby's International, Naples, Florida. You could reach her by going to Sotheby's in Naples or direct at Tina Morocco, MURACCO.com. Tina Morocco, your trusted guide to Florida real estate. And she specializes in Southwest Florida. And here she is. Hi, Tina. How are you?
Hey, Bob. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. We have sunshine here. Ah.
Oh. That's great.
I know you have it every day, but, don't bore us with your nonsense.
Well, we did get some rain over the weekend, so, weather changes here once in a while.
Well, I love rain. I love warm, rainy days. I love them.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of thunderstorms coming over this summer, hopefully. We're still in a little bit of a drought here, so,
so
we
need the rain. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
sure
so what's on your mind today, Tina?
So I was thinking about horses. We're just coming off the Kentucky Derby weekend. I know a lot of people had fun watching the Kentucky Derby, but I was thinking about something that a lot of people don't think of when they think of Southwest Florida is horses. And I know, Wellington is very famous for horses. Ocala is very famous for horses. And we have the equestrian centers over there, the polo clubs and everything. But Southwest Florida has a huge equestrian community. And we have a lot of properties here in Naples, Fort Myers, Alva, Estero, that are great for people that are, into horses. Huh. And so, I'm talking like acres and, places from like 1 acre to, 10 or 20 acres we have here. And we have, in Naples at least, the rule is you can have 2 horses per acre. And I've shown properties to people that are, interested in just, backyard riding, backyard horses, but also people that are very into competitive horse competitions, jumpers and things like that. And so they travel with their horses. So it's a big deal here. And I would say it's growing a lot. I was just looking through social media, and I have some friends that are part of Naples has a therapeutic riding center, which had a huge Kentucky Derby party Saturday, and it was just really well attended, and it raises a lot of money for the therapeutic riding center. But
because a lot of people are into that. I love horses. I look at them. I go, my God, what magnificent, beautiful animals. But
right,
I already have a big dog.
You have basically a horse.
He is like a horse.
Not even a miniature horse either.
He's more like a cow than a horse, but yeah. But that's neat.
Yeah, so just another thing when you're thinking about, things to do in Southwest Florida, we have a ton of horse riding trails here that offer, public rides, if you're into that, sunset rides. And, the funny thing, when you think of Florida, you don't necessarily think of, riding a horse, what would that look like here? Yeah. But it almost looks like Texas when you get into like parts of Florida that, are flat, or not close to the beach. You're kind of walking through almost like a little bit of a jungle Texas. And it's really cool. It's a different thing to do here. And I think it's gaining in popularity. And you can see that when you have all these horse riding trails around here.
That's neat. So if you love horses, it's there.
It's there, yeah. It's here, and I would say, like I said, growing, and we're not far from Wellington or Ocala, too. So, if you're here on vacation and you want to take go over to watch the polo or, watch some of the competitions at the equestrian centers, we're not a far ride from either of those places either, So something to do here.
Really? Well, there's enough to do, that's for sure. Well, Tina, thank you very much. Tina Morocco.
Of course.
Global Sales Advisor at Sotheby's International, Naples, Florida. You could look her up through Sotheby's or go right to the source, which is Tina Morocco, MURACCO.com. Thank you, Tina. Now we know what to do now. Another thing to do.
Another thing.
Pretty neat. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Tina Morocco. Love it. Hey, let's get one more phone call in before the break. And this is Jim from Hazleton. How are you, Jim?
Good. How you doing? I got a Bob Davila story. I met him a bunch of years ago at a card show. Got his autograph. He was definitely a pitcher, not much of a hitter. He told me a story. He only ever had one major league hit in his career, and it was against Sandy Koufax.
Really? Oh, and by the way, just so you know, he's talking about Bob DeLiba, one of our veterans today. How about that?
Yeah, I thought his name was a little different, but I met him a long time ago. But I met him like 5 or 6 years ago. I got his autograph and that. I don't have any cards of his. He had a couple cards from back then, but he joked with me when I was talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, I could pitch. Not much of a hitter though." It's like, I only got one ever major league hit. It was against Sandy Koufax. I was like,
that's amazing.
I guess if you're going to get a hit against somebody, Sandy Koufax is the guy.
And he coached in college. He coached at local college with my buddy Ace Bronya. So it's like, gosh, I feel like I know Bob. I really do.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I only met him that one time, but I sat there and shoot the breeze with him for like 10 or 15 minutes, and he was telling me that story. And when you were talking about him, I said, that Bob likes little tidbits like that may or may not be well known, and that was right from the horse's mouth. So.
And Jim, they say one of the listeners texted in he had a fastball over 100 miles an hour, like he threw it hard. And they said he'd sting your hand at age 75 when you were playing catch with him.
I don't doubt it, but back in them days, them guys were more worried about concentrating on pitching and not hitting. So it was kind of a thing they had to do to hit, but they weren't going to risk getting hurt when they were pitching on their hitting. So
pretty neat. Hey, don't you have a theme song? Did the Bulldog forget about your theme song today?
He did again. He always forgets me,
My
Bob.
gosh.
It's okay.
Well, you're
gonna have to put. You're gonna have to put a leash on him and take him for a walk.
He's being extra mischievous today. He really is. I pointed out, Jim. I pointed out to the Bulldog. I said, I'm working with you every day for like 3.5 years. He's never said hello, number one, and he's never said, how are you? So now today he comes in, it's like I'm dealing with Chatty Cathy. Hey, Bob, how you doing? How you feeling? And I know it's all phony,
Remember we had that conversation last time about it, that you got with the Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, he's got to forward it up to the music.
All right, so next time you tell him about your theme song, all right, Jim?
I will.
All right,
I'll
thank
tell
you,
him,
man.
Make sure he bumps it up against the music so we don't have a long lead-in, because I actually forgot about that.
That's right, the long lead-in is what happened last time.
I figured, though, most people that know that, I didn't even think about it, but most of the time, usually with the theme songs, you usually move up to the music anyway, you would think. I don't know.
Well,
but you just got to, after you get off of work today, put a leash on him and take him for a walk around the building.
All right, buddy. Jim, thank you as always, my friend. We got to take a break. Bob Cordaro, the eponymous program. We roll on. That's Grand Funk. That's their version of Little Eva's Locomotion. And it was a number one hit, Murph tells us. This date, 1974. Charlie Buffalino's in the studio with us. We're going to be talking to him on the next hour about his new book entitled Buffalino, Revelations of a Mafia Family, the Teamsters, and the Final Resting Place of Jimmy Hoffa. We're looking forward to that conversation. But I messed up 3 days in a row. I failed to do Mother Teresa, St. Teresa. So now I've got 3 of them to do before the top of the hour. So bear with me on this. Mother Teresa for April 30th. She said, "We are commanded to love God and our neighbor equally, without difference. We don't have to look for opportunity to fill this command. They're all around us, 24 hours a day. You must open your eyes wide so that you can see the opportunity to give free service, wholehearted, right where you are in your family. If you don't give such service to your family, you will not be able to give it to those outside your home." That's Mother Teresa for April 30th. May 1st, Mother Teresa. She says, "A little child has no difficulty in loving, has no obstacles to love. And that is why Jesus said, unless you become like little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of God." St. Teresa for May 1st. Now, let's see. Here's May 4th. She says, "Let us not make a mistake. The hunger of today is for love. Feeding the hungry, not only for food, but for the word of God. Giving drink to the thirsty, not only for water, but for peace, truth, and justice. Nursing the sick and the dying, not only of body, but also of mind and spirit." So we were able to do the 3 Mother Teresa, St. Teresa for today. As long as we get them done, I don't mind them in order because they're important. So thank you, Mary Regina, for sticking with me. I missed 2 days in a row, so now we got 3 in. Hey, a reminder, if you're looking on the live stream, and Charlie Buffalino is going to be on that as well, it's brought to you by our friends at Roach Supply. They are the premier bath and kitchen supplier in Northeast PA, and they're celebrating 75 years in business. You know what that means? Because it's 4th generation. It means they're great at what they do, and it means you could trust them. And it means they just get the job done. 75 years in business, still helmed by 90-some-odd-year-old Ron Roach, my old neighbor. Visit Roach Supply, ROCHE.com today. Somebody texts this in, and it is worth mentioning. It says, "When is enough enough?" 3 stories today in the New York Post, 1 on Fox News, of illegal alien criminals released to cause more damage. 1 butchered somebody with a knife on Long Island. 1 crashed and killed somebody in New York City. And Virginia is about to release an illegal alien woman charged as a sexual predator and rape and a probation violation. They're going to release her. And the fools on the left will call them our neighbors. No, this whole argument, and don't forget the riot in New York. They were fighting with New York City police and trying to prevent ICE agents from doing the job. Now, they bring this guy, an illegal alien criminal, under warrant for criminal charges. They bring him to the hospital because he was complaining of some kind of problem. They bring him to the hospital. Somehow, the lunatics find out that there's an illegal alien at the hospital. They don't give a spit what his crime is. They don't care what he's done to people, Americans or otherwise. They descend like locusts on the hospital. The New York City police had to come out. And so naturally, for the compassion of bringing this illegal to the hospital, ICE gets attacked, essentially, and so do the New York City police. And, of course, Mayor Communist Mamdani blames it on ICE. These people are insane. This is why we call it the sanctuary of sanity. You have, because at some point you'll say, well, wait a minute, what am I missing here? What did I miss? Really? ICE is at fault? The New York City police are at fault? Not the radicals who are running around attacking law enforcement. No, they're not the problem. And this goes on everywhere. It's exhausting. Somebody had texted in on the gerrymandering issue. Bob, and I think they're saying it sarcastically, Bob, Mississippi wouldn't gerrymander black people politically, would they? Well, they did over decades. And federal court on, by the way, decisions that haven't been overturned, federal court action, because they didn't do anything in the state, they've created 43 black majority districts in the House and 16 in the Senate, bringing the opportunity for African-American seats in Mississippi to roughly the 38% of the population they represent. So, by the way, so the Supreme Court is saying, they're not saying that there was never any discrimination. In fact, they obviously agree with that fact. But they're saying you can't discriminate based on race in terms of developing districts. We are beyond that. How that becomes right wing, I don't know. We don't want racism in districting. Okay. How does that become even controversial? I don't know. All right. But maybe in your mind it is. Again, look in the mirror and check yourself, please. Hey, we've got to take a break because my Cordaro Jewelers watch tells me it's 11 o'clock and change. That means we got to go to the news with Brian Hughes. We're going to do that. We got playing a little something after the news. Then we'll be back with Charlie Buffalino talking about his new book about the gang. Great good morning, everyone. It's 11:07 a.m. on my Cordaro Jewelers watch this beautiful Monday, May 4th, 2026 here in the great Northeast. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and honor, with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great Eastern Roofing Systems, the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost this year but celebrate today, thanks to John, like Neil Morrison of Milton and Larksville, John Renitsky, West Hazelton, Robert Bob DeLiba, West Pittston, Robert Perlis, Scranton, Barry Prandy, Pittston, and Clinton Kittle, Harvey's Lake. So with history, our amazing founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that our deep and unalterable commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity for all of you who hearken here. And with us now, I mentioned, and we bring him on with no further ado, Charlie Bufalino. Charles, you have written a book about your family. And the center of the book is Russell Bufalino, the late Mafia Don. But you also really capture, I think, an amazing American story of your entire family and what they did and what they went through and what they experienced. I think the book is valuable not just for the revelations regarding Russell Bufalino, your late uncle, but regarding the whole family and how they assimilated and what they had to deal with here in the United States and Pittston specifically.
Yes. So it's a unique family, and it's a unique family in, if you want to say, mafia lore, because of its connections to business.
Yeah.
You know, socialism was a big movement at the time, and the goal of socialism is communism, and the goal of communism is to seize the control of the means of production, right?
Yep.
And they were all coal contractors, or many of them were coal contractors, not my immediate family. Let's be careful with the uncle word. Russell's not my uncle, so I don't want to start a war.
Okay.
So
great
things
uncle,
are bad enough.
Distant uncle.
Something. Nobody really knows.
All right. Yeah. And that's actually one of the things you point out. Records were not very clear. No. One of the things that actually led to deportation orders against Russell Bufalino is it wasn't clear that he was born here or that he was an American citizen.
It was clear he was born in Montedoro, Sicily.
Okay.
But Italy wouldn't take him back for a lot of reasons, having to do with, just, they didn't want anything to do with him. Just,
yeah.
Right.
So there's two branches of the family. They sometimes work together, as with the multiple businesses housed under a couple of roofs on one street. How did your family handle, I guess, the infamy that comes with the name?
We're handling it still.
Yeah.
Right. So all the Montanats family, all the whatever family you can name, were active back then under the hood of the organization that Russell would come to head. And they're all out enjoying whatever peace and prosperity they can.
Yeah.
But when anybody says the mafia, that's the mafia over there, and they point to me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of notoriety that goes along with that, and a lot of other stuff that comes along with it, too. Just, karma.
Now, the connections were pretty deep. By the way, you mentioned coal operators. One of the most successful coal operators, because Pennsylvania Coal, you write in the book, started contracting out. And Santo Volpe, who's widely recognized in our lore, or local lore, as a mafia chieftain preceding Russell Buffalino, he had one of these contracts and did exceptionally well with it.
He had only Pagnotti had more contracts than him. He had in the number 30s, and with various partners.
Fascinating. And these are people, but you also mentioned at his funeral, you had two ex-governors as pallbearers.
Supreme
Dan
Court
Flood.
Justice, out of control, and the head of the United Mine Workers, too. John L. Lewis, who was, he's no longer the head, probably. Where was he? I don't know.
Yeah, he might have been. Yeah, but he had been.
Yeah,
and one of the founders
during his, tenure as the.
So there was an integration. Despite, I guess, the patina of crime, that because there was enough legitimate business that people did business with Volpe and his successors, including Russell Buffalino.
Right. Somebody in this mix was a patron. Sorry. And
explain what they are for listeners.
So in order to come to America for yourself, with your family, it was like a $35 to $50 one-way trip. It's like 2 months' pay or better. So nobody could afford it. And so they needed banks of labor brokers to bring you across. And those might have been, in fact, some of them were. Pennsylvania Railroad might have supplied some of the funds. They certainly rewarded those families that sponsored 10 or more families for 10 years in a certain way. And it's also possible that one of the three individuals that were the crime family, Russell's uncle, Calogero for one, might have been the padrones themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we'll bring you here, we'll house you, we'll feed you, you work in the mines, and you give us a tithe, basically. And so structurally, there were three Buffalino men in my immediate family, including my grandfather, and my two granduncles. And then Calogero. Russell's father was a fifth, but he didn't survive for 2 years. And then Russell grew up under Calogero. So for 25 years, from 1902 to almost 1930, so maybe 28 years, those four men were in partnership. And Calogero was the money man and the silent partner in a hotel, a bar, a general store, a butcher shop, and a soda bottling
factory. Yeah, I thought that was neat.
All housed in four buildings on a solid half block of Railroad Street. And that was the center of the Oregon section of Pittston, which was across Main Street, and a little farther away. That was a different group, maybe. But yeah, we were. Because it's not very deep. From Main Street to the city line is like 3 blocks deep. Yeah. But there were thousands of people crowded in there.
Well, you mentioned, among many things, the density of populace in Pittston approached like Hong Kong.
If the published figures are right, that's what it boils down to, because Pittston is like 1.75 miles square with 11 or 16,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's in the book.
Fascinating. That's one of the things. The research that you had to do to put this together is awe-inspiring. It really is.
Thank you. I had to do a lot to understand. Right. So I only knew what I knew growing up, and what they tell you is nothing, basically. The internet and a few publications that have been without cease since I Heard Your Paint Houses, provided some of the background, but still, I needed to explore the family stories, how people walked four abreast on Main Street, what it was like in the mines, what it was like on the street, because it was a very famous street.
Yeah.
So I needed to understand what that, why that was and how that all fit together, because So if the book has this thesis that I think Hoffa's in Pittston, now I could be wrong. Okay.
That's your hook, and yeah,
That's right.
Hoffa might be in Pittston.
That's sort of a whole side thing, but
Yeah.
and I was really trying to prove that couldn't possibly be true because I didn't want it on me, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to dig really deep to find out, who these individuals were, what their role was in the organization, what their, roles were among themselves, and what affiliation they had with Hoffa and Detroit. And I came away knowing a little bit more than I wanted to, and then I had to, see how that all fit together.
So you had an uncle, his nickname was Yabo.
Yabo. Angelo.
And he went back and forth from Detroit.
Yeah, he was with Bill from 1947.
Bill Buffalino.
Right.
Now, that is your uncle, or no?
No, he's my cousin. He's my
your
father's first cousin, so he's
Okay.
my first cousin once
Okay.
removed. And that's pretty much the relationship I have with Bill and his family.
And Bill Buffalino was essentially the Teamsters lawyer in Detroit.
Right. He was the, I think it was 985, Union Local 985 president, which was the jukebox local. And he was, Hoffa's attorney, but he wasn't a trial attorney. So for a lot of reasons, he felt diminished by that. And he had a Pennsylvania law, he was in the Pennsylvania bar. He
License,
wanted
yeah.
to practice in Detroit, so he had to have an office locally. So he had an office locally for 3 years to meet the requirement to join the Detroit bar.
The only time he Bill Buffalino, the lawyer, got his due or exposed, however you want to look at it, was when Ray Romano played him in The Irishman.
It was best casting ever.
Yeah.
Because
Very
Bill,
similar.
Bill was a crazy smart guy. I mean, he wasn't crazy, but he how Ray Romano can flip on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
Bill sort of had that, and then he had cleverness that he was very entertaining to be around, basically.
Charlie Buffalino's my guest. He is the author of Buffalino, Revelations of a Mafia Family, The Teamsters, and the Final Resting Place of Jimmy Hoffa. We're going to take a break on the Bob Cordaro Show, hear from our great sponsors, a little history, a little music, and then we'll come back with Charles Buffalino, the author. history tells us this date, 1970, the Ohio National Guardsmen opened fire during an anti-war protest at Kent State. It was kids killing kids, oddly enough. I often think of things like Kent State and the Vietnam War protests, and I say to myself, it was the same mentality, and I don't say that in a negative or a positive way, of people protesting, but they actually had things to protest, like structural racism and the war in Vietnam. The clowns that are in charge and do this now, they're just making it up. They're literally making it up. Crazy, crazy stuff. What a shame. I mean, you take the protesters of that time and you compare them to the protesters now. They're basically protesting now based on lies. And that's what they do. Crazy. And then that was the real deal back then. And 4 kids died on this date, 1970. Well, we're talking with Charles Buffalino. He's the author of Buffalino, Revelations of a Mafia Family, The Teamsters, and the Final Resting Place of Jimmy Hoffa. So Russell Buffalino takes over the family, so to speak, late 40s.
1949.
Okay. And how does that change things? You're still living in Pittston, right?
I was born in 1957.
Okay, so you haven't been born. Okay, this predates you.
Yeah, predates me.
All right.
I was born like a month and a half before Appalachian.
How does this, I guess, affect the family from what you researched?
How did Russell's
ascendance
affect the family? My brothers were like 12 years older than me. Nick was born in 1945. They would go to New York City on a spur just to see the Metropolitan Opera, unannounced. And Russell would hand them tickets. And, Delmonico Steakhouse, sure. You need a hotel room? Yes. So Russell was like the whole first-generation children, my father and all of his siblings and cousins, across 3 families, 20 of them. Russell was like their genie. They rub a lamp, and Russell comes out, what do you need?
Yeah.
And that was because they had this familial relationship. It's not safe to say that Russell grew up next to Bill because there were 15 years between them, but he was, life contemporaries with a lot of the children in the family.
So Bill Buffalino, much less heralded, he goes out to Detroit and gets involved with the Teamsters Union there.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about his career and things that he did.
So Bill was at Romulus Air Force Base in Detroit during the war. And, when his service was completed, he came back home. And one of the Melly brothers, Angelo's brother, who was a San Cataldo, we talk about Montedoro and San Cataldo, that's all Caltanissetta province, Sicily, was known to Bill's brother, Charles. And Bill's brother, Charles, suggested that Bill meet up with him out in Detroit and get involved in business with him. And that's what Bill set out to do. Before he left the military, he made the contact with Melly and ended up in business with his son and married to his daughter.
Oh. So the ties and involvement, and I guess in a lot of ways control of the Teamsters starts with that, and Bill Buffalino's the point man.
Right. So his business with the Mellys was they were like a Wurlitzer dealer and music distributor. And they ended up in some difficulty. They were being picketed by the Teamsters, by the jukebox local, I think it was 985. And so Bill did what Bill does. He sued them for like $100,000. And Jimmy James, who was in charge of that union, brought Hoffa in to advise him. And that's when Bill met Hoffa. So there's this story in the family about how they first butted heads. And then Hoffa admired Bill's style, because it was very bare knuckle, and brought him in as the business agent for that local. And then very quickly deposed Jimmy James for reasons unknown that Jimmy James would never discuss, and made Bill the president of that local. And then they made it square in the next election. So, and then he was the local president for 20-some years.
And he kept in touch with your family, came home, had the law office here, all that, right?
Well, he was probably not in major touch with the family during the 50s because that was a hot period. But when Hoffa was imprisoned at Lewisburg, 90 minutes down the road, it was Bill's job to visit him weekly. And 90 minutes down the road is his sister, who he thinks of as, his mother. She raised him. So he's going to come on his own sometimes just to see her, and he's going to come and stay for a week just to mitigate that trip because Lewisburg to Detroit is 6 hours even today. And so he was quite around a lot. And with him would be either his brother, Angelo Yabo, or his son, William Buffalino II.
From your perspective, and I'm sure you watched The Irishman.
Yeah.
Did that capture, factually capture that which your research revealed?
It didn't go so deep into the family workings as I go. But, I mean, the portrayal of Bill was, the selection of Ray Romano was great. His portrayal of Bill was respectful and still just crazy enough, so it was good. Pesci was brilliant. I mean, he really had Russell's tone down. You have to believe that he knew, or he knew people who knew Russell personally. I think he captured him. The only thing I didn't like about the movie, really, was the Lady Macbeth scene where Russell, Carrie, his wife, is coming down the stairs, and Russell enters through this side door, and there's blood all over his shirt. That never.
Yeah.
No.
It's a dramatic license,
Yeah,
I think
right,
they call
exactly.
that. We're talking with Charles Buffalino. He's the author of Buffalino. It's on sale now, am I correct?
Yeah.
On sale now. You can get it at Amazon. You get it at your bookstores, particularly in Northeast Pennsylvania. But I know we have a lot of listeners, Florida and elsewhere. In fact, we got text, somebody's 2/3 of the way through the book and love it. But it's Buffalino, the revelations of a mafia family, the Teamsters, and the final resting place of Jimmy Hoffa. Charles Buffalino, he's the author. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with our Veterans Tribute, the weather, and then more on the book, Buffalino. Our Veterans Tribute this hour, as with every hour, this day, as with every day, dutifully, loyally, patriotically, brought to you by our man John Basiliga and his great Eastern Roofing Systems. His first company, his biggest company. They are the premier roofing contractor in the eastern United States for industrial, commercial, and institutional purposes. And they take all that buying power, all that expertise, because they're headquartered in Jessup, and they'll do your home. They'll do the roof on your house. They'll do your building, your project, small or large, because they're here. Eastern Roofing Systems. Barry Prandy. We lost him April 12th. He was 79 years old. He was from Pittston. He and his wife, Margaret Peggy Sweeney Prandy, had celebrated their 52nd wedding anniversary December 29th last year. Born in Jenkins Township, graduate of Pittston Area High School. He was a proud veteran of the U.S. Air Force, having earned the rank of sergeant, serving during the Vietnam War. Prior to retirement, he was the owner of Barry's Barbershop, Pittston, and Prandy's Barbershop, Scranton. Barry retired from SCI Dallas State Prison as a barber instructor. He was a member of the Ashley American Legion. The family wanted to extend their heartfelt gratitude to Debbie Williams, Barry's sister-in-law, who took good care of him during his illness. In addition to his wife, he's survived by his son, his granddaughter, his sister, and other family members. Barry Prandy. Clinton Kittle, and it's with a Y, but I think it's Kittle, pronunciation-wise. We lost him April 12th. He was 87 years old. He was from Harvey's Lake. Clinton was born in Pikes Creek, PA. Graduated from Lake Noxon High School in 1956 and went on to serve our country in the U.S. Army. He worked for Sperry Rand, working on radar systems, and in 1968 he was hired at Procter & Gamble, employed there until retirement. He was a member of many organizations, including the Dallas Legion, the Northmoreland Fire Department, where he was a charter member. He was also a member of the Harvey's Lake Lions Club and the first class of EMTs in Pennsylvania. Survived by his beloved wife for 65 years, Joanne Weed Kittle, his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. A great legacy. Clinton Kittle. Our Veterans this hour brought to you by John Basiliga and Eastern Roofing Systems. AccuWeather forecast brought to you by the gang, the great gang, at Montage Mountain Resort, where they are swinging into spring. Today, partly sunny, breezy, and warmer, high 73. Right now at Montage Mountain, 64 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 55. Tomorrow, breezy in the morning. Otherwise, partly sunny and warmer, high 82, low 57. Wednesday, breezy, but it'll be cooler. Periods of rain, 63 is the high, low of 44. Thursday, breezy with periods of rain, high 58, low 39. Friday, intervals of clouds and sun with a stray shower, breezy, high 60, low 45. And that's your weather, brought to you by the gang, the great gang at Montage Mountain Resort. This date, 1985. Murph tells us Don Henley moved into the top 10 charts at number 9 with All She Wants to Do Is Dance. Bob Cordaro back with you. And Charles Buffalino, our guest. He's the author of the book, Buffalino. Somebody asked, who has the book locally? Barnes & Noble had some copies, right, Charlie?
Right.
And they hopefully they do, but you could always get it from Amazon. Isn't that something? That's how the bookstores.
That's sad.
That's
but you
how
can order it also.
You can order it through
Barnes.
You can order it through Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Great book. I mean, I'm telling you, the thing that's to me, and I said at the beginning of the conversation, it's a uniquely American immigrant story. It really is.
Yeah, Pittston is like no place else.
Well, you mentioned that even today, Pittston is 20% Italian American.
Yeah.
Which
that was the last sentence. It's 21, I think.
Yeah, how about that? All right, somebody asked, I'm an acquaintance with the Chiandra family who lived off 8th Street Bridge in West Pittston. I've heard that one Chiandra was a godfather who Russell Buffalino took over for. Any truth to that?
Oh, John.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Fascinating, yeah.
So John took when the big three stepped out of the limelight. So there was internecine problems between the big three, and things got real hot during Prohibition after a couple spectacular events, and they stepped out of the limelight, and they gave it to John Chandra, who'd been in town since, I think, 21. So the final 15 years of Russell's, if you want to say training, were under John Chandra. Sure.
Yeah. And he was married into that family?
Yeah, I think Carrie was his niece.
Okay.
That's not 100%.
And by the way, mentioning family was critical because they could trust you.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing in Detroit, you married into the family.
And that's how it all went.
Yeah.
You discussed a little bit in the book about which family was the head, I guess. Was it, did it start in Buffalo? Did it start here? Was it, what origins? Because a lot of it is murky, but you do delve into it.
It is murky. I do try to touch on it. People are trying to figure out what Russell's relationship is to the 5 families in New York, and some people are of the opinion that Russell came out of Buffalo to take over. Russell was always Pittston property. Like for the latter half of his life, he was in New York City 4 days a week, and in Kingston 3 days.
Yeah.
And but you would never say he was from New York City. Neither would you say he's from Buffalo. But he had business in Buffalo. He had a garage in Buffalo. So and his first job was as a taxi driver for John Montana, who would later testify before the Rackets Committee.
Fascinating.
Because he was at Appalachian. So he had to explain he was a big-time business owner up in Buffalo, and he was affiliated with, Magadino.
Yeah.
So it's an easy mistake to make, but if you look at org charts of the Buffalo family, Russell's not in them. And again, his lifetime growing up was in Pittston and under these, 3 very savage black-handers. Yeah. So he had quite an education coming up.
When you talk about Russell Buffalino, you more or less agree with Billy D'Elia's comment that he was not a member of the commission. He was above the commission.
I don't know. Aboveness sticks in my throat just because, I don't want any of that, But separate but equal. Like, I look at this region as autonomous with respect to what was going on in New York City, because they didn't. There was too much going on here.
But there were ties with the Genovese family specifically.
From the very first.
Yeah.
From the very first.
From the early 1900s.
Yeah, there was counterfeiting going on, and some of the stories in the book about Lucchino involved that, because Lucchino ended up testifying against the Genovese and
Yeah.
There's some question about who actually took care of him over that.
Yeah.
It was local.
Speaking of local, Murder Street.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, that's what they called it. I mean, it was a pretty good descriptive moniker for Railroad Street in Pittston, from the West End drugstore up to the city lines, just 3 blocks long. But it had this notorious reputation from the very early 1900s for people being killed for lots of reasons. Some of them to do with the mines and union troubles, and some of them just bad assimilation.
Life wasn't, for these Italian immigrants, life wasn't easy.
No.
And it was fraught with peril.
Yeah, it was. People would definitely avoid walking up that street. They would walk up, look, it's a huge hill. They would walk up Oak Street instead, and then, cut down to get to where they needed to go up the farther reaches. But they wouldn't bother with the gauntlet.
So we were talking about it. Let's go to the Hoffa murder as we're getting tighter on time. You looked through all the theories and all the writings. What? And it's hard. I wouldn't call them conclusions, but what did you come away with after your research?
All right. So the book exists because I ran into some information locally that suggested that Hoffa might be in Pittston. And I don't have to go too deep into that, but that was 2011. And what I knew as of 2011 was everything Frank Sheeran said and nothing else about Hoffa. And what he led on was that Hoffa had been cremated. Okay, so that's my starting point. And in that year, someone presented me these 2 nondescript cement-looking artifacts, let's call them, and said, "Hey, see those? Bill Buffalino gave those to me." Oh, really? And he goes, "Yeah, he had a hobby of making those nondescript cement objects." And I'm like, no, he didn't, because I have one. And his sister Mary would certainly have had one. So, but I let that roll off. I said, wow, that's pretty exciting. And then I went away. I forgot about it. And then Bill's office had been downstairs on the other half of the house. That was a house I bought at tax sale in 1997. And I was moving stuff out of it. And here's a legal pad with a draft of Bill's first Dear John letter to Hoffa. And it explained, what his reasons were for making the split. And that was interesting. And then I found something else, which was somebody's first-person remembrance of having made those 2 artifacts. And I'm sort of stunned, and I'm thinking, do I really just know something that I'm not supposed to know?
Are the ashes part of these?
These, right. And so that was like unnerving. Just because, be the one guy in the world to know anything. You got to share it.
Yeah.
Right? I knew that if there was any possibility of that being true, I would have to write about it. So I looked for reasons not to do that, because it was really not fun to write a book.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was, all right, I better find out a little bit more about Hoffa and what happened. And so there are people out there in the world who've got 20 years of research involved in what exactly happened to Jimmy Hoffa and what exactly was the outcome. You've got Dan Mulday, you've got Scott Bernstein's at Detroit Free Press, and Mr. Tubman, who've all taken a big swath at it. So I'll condense all of that for you. Between Tubman and Scott, they merge on Central Sanitation in Detroit, which is a paper processing plant, a waste facility. It's the second of 2 facilities owned by Basi Vitali, who was a member of the outfit or the partnership. And it's run by Nicky Maselli. So The FBI's first theory is there's been a cremation.
We've got to go to
Okay.
Bloomberg. We'll
Go
be
ahead.
back.
Yep.
Charlotte Buffalino. Who's this, Bulldog? Roxette? Oh, Murph says this is Roxette. They moved up to number 2 with their hit Joyride. I've heard this song before. This date, 1991, Murph tells us. And we're going to finish with Three Dog Night. Moved into the top 10 charts at number 8 this date, Murph says, with their hit The Show Must Go On. May 4th, 1974. Charles Buffalino in studio, which is a rarity, Charles. I seldom let people in because I'm like, I can't do my push-ups. I can't, run around. I can't argue with the Bulldog. I have to pretend like we like each other when people are here. But in any event, you were talking about Detroit.
Right.
Get into that
and
quickly.
2 of the final theories about what happened to Hoppe collide at Central Sanitation. And then they differ about the outcome, but the cremation story is one that Russell endorses, Bill D'Elia endorses in his book, Frank Sheeran said it, Stephen Brill.
And it makes a lot of sense.
Right, so what do we do with this body? And at the same time, it doesn't because you've got bones to deal with. But Scott Bernstein's theory deals pretty handily with bones, and I'll leave it there. It's worth watching. He's got a podcast on it, or rather a YouTube video. So here we are at Central Sanitation in Detroit, which is owned by Bozzi Vitale, Peter Vitale, who is a member of the partnership, who has 2 daughters. One of them marries Joe Barbara's son. So Joe Barbara was the Joe Barbara from Appalachian.
We didn't get to touch on, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they used to call him Joe the Barber.
Yeah.
His son, Joe, they called him Joey the Clipper. And so he's married to one of Bozzi's daughters. And then there's the lawyer for the facility that is married to the other daughter. And that lawyer, according to Stephen Brill, takes the FBI on a tour of the place to say, okay, all right, they've gone already to a funeral home that didn't have a crematory. Now they're checking out whether we have an incinerator here and it's in dispute. But he takes them around the place, and the lawyer's name is Nick Maselli. And that's I find out that's my Aunt Pauline's son, my own first cousin. And I'm like, now he's from Burbank. Yeah. So what's he doing in Detroit wrapped up in all of this? So, that was number 4 revelation that made me say, okay, I really need to know who the players are in this zoo, and what, I've got to dig a little more to find out. I don't have to write this, because if I find out otherwise, I have to write a book.
And you did.
Yeah.
And you did. And I think we're wealthier for it. You go to Barnes & Noble and order it. It may be at the stores. And you go to Amazon and order it. It's called Buffalino by Charles Buffalino. One of the things I guess that's I really want to emphasize, it really is an immigrant story, an Italian family's story, which is similar to so many from all different ethnicities, except that it's got a criminal tinge to one part of the family.
Right. Well,
more than a tinge.
See, the thing is, the coal companies needed strikebreakers. And in Sicily, in the sulfur mines, there was plenty of that. They were being run and controlled by families apart from and like mine for the barons that owned them.
And human nature didn't change much when they came overseas.
No.
Charles Buffalino, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We appreciate the book very much on a lot of different levels. A good read. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm telling you guys, buy it. You'll enjoy it. You'll learn a lot, and you'll get a real feel, I think, for America, and certainly an Italian-American experience in this country and beyond. It's really got some universal appeal. Thank you so much. And guys, we got to go. I mean, you know this. We don't like to go, but we have to go every day because Sue Henry show's next, Rob O'Donnell show after that. For now, we're going to gavel to a close this meeting of the Club for Common Sense because my Picardo Jewelers watch tells me it's time to go. 12 o'clock. Have a great afternoon.